Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Turn it sideways.
Next. Coming in.
Okay. Take them out of the front.
Where do you want to stack them?
Right here on the counter.
Yeah, then we'll get one out of the way.
Yeah, I got it.
Let's just start it there.
I like that mothball smell too. Keeps the
Never can
backers
tell
out of it.
what's going to eat. Synthetic, it's additive. Looks like
This can't all fit in here anymore. They really narrowed it down.
okay. Who's coming back?
Why so much? What do you need to?
We want to make sure that the Marijuana Initiative makes it on the ballot this year, so we've collected, what is it, 25, 27,000 extra signatures. And, we're turning them in early to take advantage of the law, which allows for early verification, so that if there is a shortfall, we can go out and collect more signatures. But I'm confident that we have enough signatures to qualify for the 86 ballot this time.
How much did it cost?
I think we spent about $30,000 to collect the signatures. You can ask our treasurer here for that question.
Now that it looks like you might get it on the ballot, how do you think people will vote if this makes it to the ballot?
I think it's going to be a hotly contested election, and I think we will win. We're turning them in early to make sure that the measure appears on the 86 ballot. We don't want to have the kind of problem we had last year. We're taking advantage of a new law that allows for early verification of signatures, and if there's a shortfall, we'll simply go out and collect more signatures. There's plenty more people that will sign the marijuana initiative.
Briefly describe what the measure would do for us.
The measure would legalize personal, private use of marijuana for adults. What this means is that sale of any amount of marijuana would be illegal, use of marijuana in public would be illegal, driving under the influence would be illegal, use by minors would be illegal, simply to allow adults to grow and possess marijuana in their own home.
John, how would you enforce the sale end of it? How, if you can grow it in your home, how are you going to stop people from selling it?
The police will stop people from selling marijuana just like they do now. They'll arrest them and convict them and put them in jail.
How many times have you tried to get this on the ballot?
This is the third time we've tried to get on the ballot.
How much is it? What kind of
Under the current law or under this proposal? Currently, possession of less than an ounce is a violation. Possession of anything else is a Class B misdemeanor. Under our law, you can possess any amount as long as it's for personal use. As soon as you sell any amount, it becomes a crime.
How many people did you have collecting signatures?
I think about 1,000 different people circulated the petitions.
Easily.
How much did it cost to get the signatures?
I think around $30,000 altogether.
How many of those 1,000 were paid?
How many of that was paid circulators?
1,000 signature gatherers were paid.
Well, we think about
Probably about 2/3 was paid petitioners and 1/3 was volunteer, or perhaps half and half.
What'd you pay them?
Anywhere from 25 to 50 cents per signature.
Valid signature.
Right, we paid only for valid signatures. We ran our own verification on all paid petitioners and paid them only for those signatures which were valid.
How many valid signatures do you think you have to say you have?
More than 62,521. Over the course of the signature gathering campaign, we've sampled over 10,000 signatures. And so we're very confident that this is enough to qualify.
How many of those 10,000 did you find were valid?
I don't have a precise figure, but it was around 20% invalid.
62,000 statutory measures are
Right.
62.
Do you think the chances, from what you can see, are better this time of winning a spot on the ballot?
Well, it's very hard for me to say. I don't really want to get into that kind of guessing game, because if it does, then someone might say that I predetermined, and if it does not, then again, I could be, so I could say question I can't win. I will say this, that with this early of a turning, the ability for us to verify and thereby having a longer time for them to put more signatures together and file to add to this group, it's very unlikely for them not to make the ballot, even if they, in this first go-around, may not have enough signatures.
In the history of people dropping off their initiative petitions, what is the usual time frame, and how does this stand in comparison?
Well, typically, the Constitution limits us to 15 calendar days from the deadline for turning in, and with rare exception of maybe only a few days, everyone turns in their initiative measure right at that deadline. So we may have as many as a dozen petitions to do all the verification of signatures within a 15 calendar day period. So there's absolutely no time to add anything to that. This is the very first one, petition that is, that we've gotten so early that we're able to do a verification, thereby affording petitioners the opportunity to obtain more signatures should there not be a sufficient number the first time around.
Okay, that's all we need.
And will that make it ballot issue number 1 on the?
No.
Not necessarily.
No, right now it would be measure number 5. There are four measures referred to the legislature by the Assembly, and those would be to have the first 4 numbers.
Come on. Go ahead, Dave.
That's okay.
These two gentlemen between them gathered about 10,000 signatures. Upstairs today, we just submitted 87,000 signatures on the Oregon Marijuana Initiative to Secretary of State Barbara Roberts. We're confident that this will be enough signatures to qualify for the November 1986 ballot. We've been much more careful than last year in collecting our signatures. There are actually several thousand signatures that we didn't turn in because we didn't think that they were good enough. We also did our own ongoing verification process throughout the signature gathering campaign. Altogether, we verified over 10,000 signatures, and we're very confident that we have more than the 62,521 required by law.
Here we are today at the State Capitol building. We just handed in 87,660 signatures. And this is Greg Mahalik, who is this is one of the people who started OMI. He's our treasurer and was one of the 3 chief petitioners the first time around. And I'm going to ask Greg a couple of questions right here. First of all, how does it feel to be handing him in and knowing that we're on?
Wonderful to be done with our 3rd campaign. I'm very happy. Sure enough.
Anything to say? This is an open mic. Just say whatever you feel like saying.
Okay, yeah. To turn him in the 3rd time, I think, is the charm. The last 2 campaign served to tell Oregonians that this was happening. This one is going to be the real thing and the clincher to say we're going to win.
Michael Rose, attorney for OMI. Why do you want marijuana legal, Michael?
There are a couple reasons. Number one, as a criminal defense attorney, I'm very tired of trying to defend people, keep people out of jail for marijuana crimes. Number two, it seems to me that as a matter of policy and as a matter of philosophy, it ought to be no business of the government's what people do in the privacy of their own homes. It seems to me that marijuana prohibition has worked no better than alcohol prohibition in the 20s, and it's a horrendous waste of time and a tremendous intrusion on the rights of people's privacy. That's why I think marijuana ought to be legalized.
We're going to be asking Fred why he wants marijuana legal.
Golly, it's I still see it as a freedom issue, and I don't see it as a marijuana issue. I'd like to see freedom legal in this country. I think this is another step on the road to legalizing freedom. I see in our society today, in what we are doing politically, I see a very clear confrontation, if that's the right phrase, a very clear meeting between those people who believe in live and let live and those people who believe in control. Those people who believe that we should all think the same things at the same time, and that the things that we think are the things that they think. And I guess I feel in my bones, in my being, that I've always been involved in this fight, just as perhaps I've always been a peasant. And we're trying to get rid of the king and live each of us our own king. And that's why I want to see marijuana legal. I'd like to go on and legalize privacy and the private acts of consenting adults, and then I'd like to see the collective will restricted to protecting us from robbers, murderers, rapists, and thieves. And I'd like to see violence and lying made illegal, and darn near and very little of anything else. That's where I'm at.
Oh, Mr. Doug.
Hi.
Come on over here. Will you look at the camera and explain to the people why you want marijuana legal?
Because I don't think I've ever been a criminal, except for the one time the police arrested me for petitioning. Outside of that, just kind of always made sense. Or sense.
And we're looking for a Michael Becker here. Come on over here. Would you explain to the camera why you would want marijuana legal?
Well, I think that as a member of the financial community, it makes great economic sense to legalize marijuana. I think that the money currently being spent ineffectively and inefficiently to enforce against marijuana represents pretty much money down the tubes. In addition, I believe Oregonians spend somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 billion a year on...
Somewhere in that vicinity. It's probably at least 500 million and possibly $1 billion. These people would be spending that money on the legitimate economy, right?
Right. Well, I see that money essentially being filtered into a black or gray economy, money that can be directly used to benefit social programs or any other programs the state might choose to use that money for. I hope to be involved.
Is there any, that you know of, interest in the lumber industry, recognizing that hemp is an alternative to cutting down trees for paper products and the other industrial agricultural uses?
Well, I know historically hemp has been a very valuable product in many respects. In many capacities it has been used. I'm not quite certain. I have not gauged the support in the lumber industry for a product of that nature.
It seems like the information I have is that Europe uses hemp, and that it only takes about 10% of the capital investment of a paper plant to convert from pine trees to hemp. What do you think would be necessary to make Weyerhaeuser and these people aware of the alternative of hemp as compared to cutting old growth for making plywood?
Well, of course, they would have to be convinced that it was economically feasible, and I'm afraid that currently, with a large proportion of those involved in the lumber industry currently out of work, trying to convince them to do anything would be particularly difficult. They are not known as being the most innovative of industries, and that is a question I'm sure that will have to be at least gauged after the fact.
Yeah, we plan on dealing with the industrial agricultural uses of hemp much more so in the future than we have in the past. We've had to stick to the issues that will be addressed to us in order to get on the ballot, and now we can branch out more into other aspects of the issue. And the information that we have is that there's about 30,000 different products that can be made out of marijuana. Any more words?
Well, woo-ha!
Just have a couple of free-form thoughts here. There's 90 legislators that sit down in this building every couple of years, and they're supposed to be the representatives of the people of Oregon, and I don't think there's a half a dozen of those 90 that would be in favor of OMI, but 1/3 of the people that are represented among those 90 use marijuana. We have a situation that's very similar to what happened at the sales tax. Those same 90 people spent 2 entire legislative sessions trying to put forward a sales tax that went down 4-1. How could these representatives have totally misjudged the feeling of the people in Oregon? We have the same situation with the marijuana issue. We know that this unholy 90, as I call them, they do not represent the people in many issues, and the marijuana issue is just another example. I don't see the marijuana issue passing 4 and 5-1 like the sales tax failed, but I see it going 50% plus 1 vote, and that's all we need. Lynn Funk, why do you want marijuana legal? Keep Oregon green. See Lynn.
I think it's important to have marijuana legal because I think it's a matter of choice and the freedom to choose whatever you want to do in your own home. Plus, it's an infringement of your civil liberties to have the cops come in and raid your house and go through your house for growing a plant. I think that it's an important step in the government infringing on other civil liberties, the fact that they can come in and search without warrants, and that they can bust you and take your property away when they wouldn't take property from murderers or rapists or child abusers, that there seems to be an unequal emphasis on a certain subculture in our community that some of the establishment doesn't seem to like, and this is their way to get at them.
Now this is Louis. He's the signature champ of this campaign. Look at the camera and tell the world why you want marijuana legal.
Well, too many of my friends have gone to jail for doing something which they're not criminals about. And I believe that the marijuana issue is just a smokescreen, a divisive issue which is intended to keep people paranoid and under the control of the police in this country. And I think that it's time for our country to be unified and pull together instead of having divisive issues that are like marijuana. And this is why I think that marijuana should be legal. I think there are millions of Americans who like to feel like they're full-time Americans and not just hiding behind some door. That's all.
And Mr. Sajo, why do you want marijuana legal?
First off, our proposal is a very cautious, moderate approach to the marijuana issue. It only legalizes possession in private for adults. Sale of any amount of marijuana will remain illegal. Use of marijuana in public will remain illegal. Use of marijuana by minors will remain illegal. And driving under the influence of marijuana will remain illegal. America was founded on the principle of freedom. Our personal liberty is important in this country. Adults should be free to make choices about what they do with their own lives. We must uphold these principles. Marijuana prohibition is a complete, utter, total, unmitigated failure. For 50 years, we've had harsh marijuana laws, and that has not stopped millions of Americans from smoking marijuana. It's time to take a look at that policy and try something different. The laws hurt us. They cause more problems than they solve. Thousands of people are arrested. Our courts are clogged. We spend millions of dollars on this law enforcement, and it doesn't stop people from smoking marijuana. The marijuana laws alienate thousands of people from police. We have real serious crime problems in the country: murder, rape, robbery, burglary. We all need to work together to solve these problems. Another reason to legalize marijuana is because the marijuana laws are hurting us economically. Right here in Oregon, marijuana smokers are spending about $1 billion a year to buy marijuana. If marijuana were legalized, the price would be way down. People could grow their own at home, and they'd have this $1 billion to spend on legitimate goods and services. Oregon can enter an economic boom when we legalize marijuana. Another reason to legalize marijuana is because the laws do not do anything to solve the problems that exist with marijuana. If someone has a problem with marijuana, we shouldn't throw them in jail, we should help them. We'd like to at least see the issue discussed. We'd like to have Oregonians have the chance to vote on it. That's what the Oregon Marijuana Initiative will do.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Freedom!
I'm Scott Hoagland. This is Planet Hemp.
I was sitting in a Motel 6 and the Bible was there on the shelf, so I decided to pick it up and read a verse. Well, according to Genesis chapter 1, verse 29, God gave every man every herb bearing its seed, which is on the earth. Well, this plant I have which bears this seed ended me up in a jail, and they took my herb away and threw me in a cage. Well, that makes me ask the question, who are the...
Throughout this program, you will learn how one of the world's oldest cultivated crops can play a major role in dealing with some of today's environmental struggles, as well as increasing the wealth, economy, and well-being of its population.
Gotta stick together and tell them this shit ain't right. Learn first and then decide.
Allow me to introduce Dr. Tom Maloney.
Research, hemp goes back a long ways for being used by man.
Dr. Maloney is the head of the Wood Materials and Engineering Department at the Washington State University. It is in his laboratories that he and his associates test building products manufactured from hemp. Next, I'd like you to meet Ken Friedman, president of American Hemp Mercantile in Seattle, Washington. Ken imports and sells goods made from hemp, including paper, fabric, food, even furniture. And this is Paul Stanford, president of Tree Free Eco Paper in Portland, Oregon. Paul sells the many paper products that can be made from hemp, from envelopes to letterhead to corrugated boxes to computer paper.
Well, our paper is made from non-wood fiber, primarily hemp.
But first, let's clear the air of a few misconceptions. Hemp and marijuana are often referred to as the same substance, but this is untrue.
Hemp is a plant that grows over most of the world. Its Latin name is Cannabis sativa. It is the same plant that marijuana comes from, but it's grown differently and they hybrid it so it's very low in THC.
If you were to think of an apple tree, hemp would be the tree itself, the bark, the roots, the stems, the leaves, the whole tree. Marijuana would then be the fruit of the tree, or the apples.
Hemp is a crop that grows annually. It grows relatively rapidly, depending on location. And Pacific Northwest, from what I understand, is a good location for growing the hemp plant. You can get a lot of material grown annually. You can grow it on land that might not be good for forest.
Perhaps the biggest hurdle tripping the hemp industry is the mistaken idea that when hemp is grown, marijuana is always produced.
Well, a lot of people get confused about what is hemp and what's marijuana, and I think in other parts of your program you're discussing that, but they're quite different. I always tell people, I say, well, what is hemp? I said, well, just think about hemp rope. That's the hemp that you're really familiar with.
Marijuana is only grown on female plants. If male plants are grown, only industry-usable material is produced. Besides growing only male plants, science has created a genetic hybrid that produces no marijuana whatsoever.
Or non-industrial hemp would be illegal marijuana, the things that's being grown in people's basements or imported from Thailand. Industrial hemp is a different hybrid. It's grown differently. It's grown for the stalk. All the fibers come from the stalk, so they grow it close together. They don't grow it for the leaves or the buds.
It's the same plant, but the plant that produces the best and most fiber doesn't produce the psychoactive substance in any quantities that are useful for drug production.
They've been doing it for generations in Western Europe and for centuries in Eastern Europe. In fact, in the United States, we had industrial hemp until 1937.
Scientists have dated hemp use back 12,000 years. It is known to be one of the first 4 cultivated crops.
12,000 years ago, hemp was one of the first crops that was purposely cultivated by human beings in the first agricultural settlements that sprung up in the Tigris-Euphrates valleys and in the Yellow River Valley.
Sailing ships used hemp to make the sailcloth, and hemp's been used in making paper for centuries and centuries.
This one plant was used to make the paper that Bibles and even the Declaration of Independence were printed on. Hemp has been woven into garments throughout history and across the world. Not only was the very first American flag sewn by Betsy Ross made from hemp, but so were the clothes and supplies of the many soldiers that fought to keep her waving.
It was illegal not to grow hemp in some of the British colonies because they needed it for their sails and their ropes, and they needed enough of a production to satisfy the Navy.
But more recently, in the 1940s, when the United States was at war in the Pacific and many of our supplies were cut off, the United States government produced a video called Hemp for Victory. This video was to encourage farmers to grow hemp for the war effort.
American hemp must meet the needs of our Army and Navy as well as of our industries. In 1942, patriotic farmers at the government's request planted 36,000 acres of seed hemp, an increase of several thousand%. The goal for 1943 is 50,000 acres of seed hemp.
Today, when grown for paper production, it would take 4 acres of trees to make the same amount of usable pulp material as 1 acre of hemp.
Well, hemp is the longest and strongest plant fiber, so it can make a stronger paper than wood fiber. Wood fiber's maximum length is about 7 to 8 millimeters, where hemp fiber can be up to 3 meters long, or hundreds of times longer.
That same 1 acre of hemp can be harvested 3 times a year, for hemp only has a 120-day growing season.
Tree-free paper can be made with any combination of hemp pulp from 10% to 90% to 100%. The paper we're currently producing is 90% hemp, 10% cotton. And it's got the obvious advantages over wood pulp because you don't need to cut trees to make nice paper. It's also stronger than wood pulp. It can be recycled more times.
According to USDA Bulletin 404, a waste product from making canvas, rope, lace, and linen, that waste product makes more than 4 times more paper than trees. According to a Dutch study that was published in last July of '93's Pulp and Paper magazine, the total production from hemp, both the bast fiber, which can be made into both paper and textiles, plus the hurd fiber, those fibers together produce more than 8 times more paper than the most productive tree species.
Another advantage to hemp paper over tree paper is that no harmful acids are used in the bleaching process.
It can be bleached with hydrogen peroxide to avoid the chlorine problems from paper industry. So it is an ideal product for paper. It's an annual plant. It yields a lot of pulp, and you can make paper with the byproducts of the textile industry. So you can use all of the plant and make each of them cheaper. All of the plant. Yeah.
Hemp is composed of very long fibers, up to 15 feet in length. And depending on how the hemp is grown, these fibers can be woven into fabric. Fabric as soft as women's lingerie or as rough as burlap.
Again, as you know, hemp fiber can be used in the United States and is being used in cloth products.
The Chinese are doing a better job right now on the lighter weight fabrics. They are spinning finer threads that the Hungarians are able to do and will start doing in bigger quantities immediately. There are probably hundreds of products you could do from hemp. The ones we're currently doing are fabrics and almost everything you make from fabric. Clothing, bags, wallets, hats, things like that are all being made currently. Futons, it's a good upholstery fabric.
Fabric made from hemp is 3 times stronger than cotton, is more water absorbent than cotton, and is warmer than cotton.
It's a good alternative to cotton because it's grown without pesticides. It stops soil erosion. It's pest resistant. It's drought resistant. Cotton has a lot of impact on the environment. It's grown with a lot of pesticides. There's some soil degradation problems. There's erosion problems. There's the problems of harvesting it and things like that. Hemp is very easy to grow. It's naturally resistant to pests, and it's naturally resistant to droughts, and so you can grow it without putting new chemicals into the environment.
Visualize, if you can, a house made entirely of hemp. Start with the foundation, the concrete. In France, they have perfected a technique where you mix hemp hurd with lime. That substance then mineralizes into a material that is stronger, lighter, and more durable than concrete.
As one of the numerous products where the hemp material could go would be into this product line, either as...
On top of our foundation lie the building materials made from trees. Hemp has the potential to replace these products.
Long fiber is very intriguing to many people because you can take that and make into long structural pieces using that fiber, because you got the fiber length and the hemp fiber is very strong.
Well, right now the demand exceeds the supply, and because of that, that's driven the price up. In the long term, though, when there aren't the artificial barriers to the market that exist today, hemp fiber will be less expensive.
Within the walls of our house, we need plumbing. Hemp can be made into a biodegradable substitute for plastic plumbing pipes.
And here's a sample of a hemp board. There's some others here too. I'm holding up one. It looks something like what I just showed. Not quite the same, because some of this has to be worked out yet, exactly how to work with these materials. Some of the machinery isn't quite right, but that's because we've been using wood machinery and not hemp machinery. Now, this board is not as good as this one over here. This is, again, you probably can't see it on the camera, but it has a nicer surface. It looks better, and I know, because the numbers aren't on the back here, but I do know it's much stronger in this. In fact, it's much stronger than the traditional MDF or medium density fiberboard I just showed you.
In a house fire, people are often killed by the gases from their carpet as it burns. Hemp carpet releases no poisonous fumes.
This could be around doors, windows, what have you, where we use high-quality lumber in the past, which we really don't have much of anymore, no matter what anybody says. As long as this is painted, you would never know the difference between this being a nice mill piece of Douglas fir, oak, what have you. If you want to have a wood grain, you can print it on, overlay it, and what have you. A lot of this is done already. So it's moving into a lot of the traditional uses where we used to have lumber.
Oil from the hemp seed can even be used to make paints and varnishes.
It works in there. It has worked elsewhere. It's been used some in this country in the past, but there is the possibility of making this kind of product with the fiber as well. There's all kinds of mixtures too. You could use a good long hemp fiber on the surfaces and some poor fiber or particle in the middle, because it's for bending purposes, and the fiber gives you the bending property. So there's all kinds of opportunities. It's going to boil down to economics, like all of these things. How much does it cost to do it? How much does it cost to grow the material, harvest it, process it? And supply and demand's in there too. If you don't have the wood material, if you want to keep making these kind of products, you use something else.
us want it to happen as soon as possible. It'd be good for the American farmers, it'd be good for the environment, it'd be good for the consumer. We get cheaper hemp products here very quickly.
The same process by which we make ethanol fuel from corn can be used to convert hemp into a usable gas for our cars and to heat our houses.
There is a process which you can make the same way you make ethanol from corn, you can make it out of hemp very economically, I think. You can also make hemp seed oil. It can be used as a fuel.
This would mean less dependency on any foreign oils and would reduce the price of gasoline in this country. But what about food? Hemp seeds contain all of the necessary and essential fatty acids, amino acids, and protein necessary for human life.
You can use it as a cooking additive. You can use the hemp seeds themselves in cooking. You can cook in the oil. It's very...
And such a variety of foods can be made with the hemp seed. Anything from hemp ice cream to hemp peanut butter, all of which aid in increasing the body's immune system and actually remove life-threatening plaque from our arteries.
It's very high in the essential fatty acids, high in protein, low in the bad kind of cholesterol, high in the good kind of cholesterol. It's like flaxseed oil as far as all the health benefits.
Just as it has done in the past, the potential is there for hemp food to play a key role in ending our world's hunger problem.
Probably everything can cure world hunger if you do it right. It could be part of the solution, certainly. And it's a plant that you can grow and be good for the environment, at the same time feed people. It's high in protein. It would contribute to the solution.
So what climate conditions are good for growing hemp?
Well, hemp is indigenous to Central Asian region, area Kazakhstan, Pakistan, the Tibetan region of China, and Kashmir region of India.
Hemp is like a weed. It can grow virtually anywhere, in virtually any soil.
Well, there are two main sources of hemp in the U.S. market right now, Hungarian hemp and Chinese hemp.
Well, it's grown in Holland. It was made legal to grow in England, I believe, in June of this year. And there's some hemp farms in Canada at the present time.
Hemp can be planted in areas that have been deforested or fallen victim to a fire.
You can grow it on land that might not be good for forest. I understand some parts here in eastern Washington where it's not particularly great for growing anything. Hemp crop would grow well.
Its long roots anchor the soil in place to prevent erosion, and its nutrient-rich foliage mixes with the soil to actually increase the fertility for the coming years. This is why hemp is also a good rotation crop for farmers.
Judging from the acceptance our products have gotten, I'm pretty sure the general public would not have any objection, or very little objection, to industrial hemp being grown here. The politicians don't realize that. Nobody even wants to talk about it yet. But with the environmental issues becoming more crucial, with the American farmers needing new crops, with the paper industry needing new pulp, it should happen very quickly.
The idea behind the hemp movement is not to eliminate jobs or eliminate industries. It is to create more jobs and new industries to integrate hemp knowledge and hemp products into today's society.
The logical way to use this to start with is as a supplement to present wood material in an operating medium density fiberboard plant like I showed here, or particle board, which is a little coarser particle, as a supplement to that raw material. And so people become familiar with the processing of the material, and it gets used properly in the board, and then eventually, with success, you could move on to a manufacturing plant that would use the hemp material exclusively.
I'm not optimistic. It might be 5 or 10 years before they allow it. And what we're trying to do is put the hemp products under the nose of the American consumers so they can see it's a good product and not be afraid of it, and start accepting it and accepting the idea of growing it here.
Support your local hemp industry. Buy hemp products. See for yourself. Test them against products that you use now. Which do you like better? Then make a choice.
it would appear that it has lots of benefits and a lot of good things that you can do with it, and the secret is economics, like I said before, and developing a way to take it out of the political and emotional scene so that there's not a concern that you're growing a drug material rather than a building material.
But it's just a question on how much political resistance there's going to be. It could happen within 1 year of the United States government allowing it. It might happen sooner under a permit plan.
And I think what's going to happen is that cannabis will be taxed and regulated, and that hemp fiber and seed will be grown without regulation, and within 10 years will become a major source of fiber for paper making.
I'm Scott Hoagland. This is Planet Hemp.
Think about it.
We roughly estimate that about a third of the people are receiving letters of recommendation and approval for primarily emotional or mental problems, and that cannabis is a unique psychotropic in this context, in that it has effects on both cognition and affect that also are inextricably connected with different kinds of physical functioning. For example, with anorexia, people get inadequate nutrition because of their anxiety causing suppression of the appetite, and that when they receive cannabis, the nutrition is improved because the peristalsis and the spasm is relieved, peristalsis is promoted, so also evacuation, which then produces improved mood and improved functioning. With regard to cognition, this also includes people with thought disorders. And you might find this kind of unusual, but there are certain aspects of cognitive functioning that cannabis helps, like suppressing or decreasing obsessive thinking, and also paranoid ideation and paranoid delusional thought. Interestingly, the short-term memory loss that people experience when they acutely medicate with usually inhaled cannabis, they can't hold a paranoid delusion long enough. And the same goes for obsessive compulsive disorder, because they can't keep up this string of pathologic associations. Also, the modulation of affect also affects the cognitive behavior. With decreased anxiety, this decreases the pressure for this abnormal type of thought. I believe that a new category is warranted that cannabis fits, and that's easement. If you look that up in the dictionary, you'll see several meanings. And one of the main meanings is giving ease, not the property legalistic kind of passage or going on to some property and getting certain rights, but easement as a calming effect. And this is what I believe cannabis more closely approximates. It's not the same as a benzodiazepine, which produces sedation and, ironically, depression. There is no free lunch pharmacologically. So people do not like the benzodiazepines and other sedatives for these kinds of reasons, and cannabis helps restore emotional responsivity in a normal way. And this also goes along with people with their paranoid ideation and disturbance of interpersonal relationships with certain people with thought disorder. They note that they're more able to relate to others, which then improves their self-esteem and their social functioning. You're never going to find this written anywhere because of the psychiatric literature being horribly biased. And I've looked through the APA publications going back maybe 70 years, and it all is tainted with the antisocial element and calling it dysfunctionality or character defect or other kinds of pejorative, condemnatory terms. And it's all pill pushing. It's all medication. And to that end, we really don't know what is happening, and this extends not just to psychotropics, but I'm going to read you a short letter to John A. Kitzhaber, MD, Director, Center for Evidence-Based Policy, Oregon Health and Science University. And this is who I suggest if you want to contact to embarrass a little bit. On February 25th, I happened to view a panel presentation by your organization on C-SPAN on the cost-benefit study of different pharmaceuticals contracted by AARP. The sum total of that panel was they could not develop any cost-benefits analyses because in analyzing the pharmaceutical literature, they discovered it was all promotional rather than objective and scientific. So everything masquerading as science is not. So based upon California clinical experience with a range of chronic conditions, our findings indicate a significant advantage over other pharmaceuticals conventionally utilized because of improved quality of life and fewer adverse effects. Consequently, we request the opportunity to discuss our findings with you. Attached is a list of conditions. And guess what the response was? So I'm glad this is going over cable TV in the Portland area, and hopefully somebody out there in the viewing audience can give the center a call and ask them to include cannabis in their studies, and especially about the mental health issue. I would be fascinated to hear the response, but I won't hold my breath.
May I interject just very briefly? There's research I'm sure you guys are all aware of about the synergistic effects of the receptor effects of opiates and cannabinoids, where they basically are hitchhiking with each other, and much smaller doses of both medications create the same benefit with, of course, much less side effects. These are really remarkable findings, and I really regret that there aren't physicians who are just monitoring the reduction in the prescription patterns of their patients if they doubt that cannabis is useful.
You think that's new? If you read marijuana medical papers, in the Ohio State Medical Society meeting on cannabis in 1860, a Dr. Frommuller from Ohio reported that using an alternating courses of opiates and cannabis for treating chronic conditions reduced dependence on opiates. 1859 this was written. And so, you know, this is something new. No, we're talking about the takeover by Big Farm and ruining policy through their special interest money. And furthermore, the fact that this whole system, can I use my favorite phrase?
Oh, why not?
Monomolecular mercantile madness. This is all patent office driven. If you look back to what it was before the single molecule ascended to its role in current commercial medicine, you'll see that it's all secondary to what can get patented. And then they claim that the newly patented material is increasingly better, blah, 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 but then you see what's happened to the literature. It's gotten thoroughly corrupted and perverted so that you don't know what's happening. And here we have now a drug-seeking, drug-hungering public convinced that they need all sorts of combinations of patentable materials. And it's really sickening our society. And when they started directly advertising to the public, for psychotropics especially, ask your doctor. Social anxiety disorder, all these kinds of influences to influence you and their bottom line.
Any other questions?
It's great to finally be able to see legal cannabis and to buy some legally as an adult. You know, I've been growing my own, so I haven't really gone to any of these dispensaries before. This is the first time I've ever bought marijuana over a counter at a cash register. And it's what we've been working for many, many years, and I'm just happy the day has finally come. You know, I asked for a Jack Herer joint here, thinking I recognize that name. He would be so proud to be here today. There's no doubt about it. He petitioned hundreds, maybe thousands of hours here in Oregon. His book was written right here in Oregon for the first edition, so this is an exciting day.
Well, I figured I'd probably be doing this in about 1972, but it's taken a few years longer. I've been going to Amsterdam for a very long time and buying recreational and social marijuana over the counter and sharing it. And we've got a long way to go before we're at that level, but it's really great to see a good start here today.
It feels great. You know, it's a real surreal moment. You know, talking to you about the progress that we've made and really the long, hard fight over decades. Yeah, I think about people like LK, Jim Gregg, Jim Clark, you know, people that put in decades to this fight, who aren't with us, who weren't able to see a day like today. And it means a lot for a lot of people. When I was in high school, I first won a debate about marijuana legalization back in like 1995. In college, I helped decriminalize marijuana in Columbia, Missouri, and my goal was to help legalize the state by 2020. You know, in Colorado and Washington legalized in 2012, and then Oregon, Alaska, and DC in 2014. And so to have a day like today, it's really a day for celebration, a day for reflection, but I know in my heart that despite the improvements we still need to make here in Oregon, that we're going to remain vigilant and we're going to have a law that can be the model for the rest of the country, and we can stop this insane and barbaric practice of arresting and jailing people for cannabis all across the country. So today is a great day. Each step of the way has been very surreal.
A lot of people have been waiting a long time to see this happen. It's a historical moment that we're all finally able to enjoy, and it is showing the freedom that we all should have and the right that we all should have to recreate, not only medicate.
It's unbelievable. We thought that this day would never going to come to reality, actually, but we're really happy, and we're happy for the people of Oregon, you know, that you went through the ballot and you succeed, and this is the result. So we're really excited to be here.
It's the way it should be. It's too bad it's taken so long, and the commuting is going to kill me down from Canada. But it's a true pleasure to be able to act like a normal person and get the product when you want it.
I'm so excited. Y libre la planta, libre la gente, libre todos.
Free. Fighting for legalization. This is a worldwide process that sooner or later will come to every single place and every single spot in the world, because it's a medicine and it's just insane that it has to be illegal. So we're really excited. This is a key moment in history, I guess.
Es alimento, así que tenemos que cuidar ese alimento para todos.
Yeah, I think that here in Oregon, we're going to show, you know, the cities and counties in Eastern Oregon that have banned marijuana businesses, that you can have regulated sales, create jobs, generate revenue. The sky's not going to fall, and that's going to carry over to more states, and more states are going to both legalize adult use cannabis, but also medicinal cannabis as well. Each of those states that comes into the legalized realm, that adds additional senators and representatives who represent people who are living in states that have legalized marijuana of some sort. So I think Congressman Blumenauer believes 5 years. I think within 10 for sure. We're going to repeal federal prohibition. It's going to be left up to the states, and that Oregon with home cultivation, keeping medical, no per se DUI, low taxes, relatively low barriers to entry. We're going to have the best policy in the country, and unless states look at what we've done and even improve upon what we've done. But I think in many ways we're going to be a model for everybody. And then the United States, looking at a global sphere, the United States has been the one pursuing the global drug war, the global war on marijuana. And once the United States ends prohibition, I think we can expect most of the world to do the same.
You know, the biggest thing is to educate people, educate your politicians, educate your family, educate your friends that marijuana is a good thing. We need hemp for our environment. We need cannabis for many different physical issues. So if the more alcohol we can replace with cannabis, the better off we'll all be.
A friend of mine, a friend of the farmer, a Native American activist from all over the country, John Trudell. I'd like to introduce John to y'all. He has a few words about farming that he'd like to talk to.
First, I appreciate this opportunity, and I'll be brief. But I want, as a person of the land, as a human being and as a person of the land, and in relationship, and I relate to farmers as being people of the land. And with all the problems that we're confronted with and faced with, I would like you all to consider learning the realities of industrial hemp. The economic, environmental realities of industrial hemp. Teach it to the young. Have your organizations and the people that represent you and you yourself take it upon yourself to learn the realities of industrial hemp. It will save the family farm. It will give the young farmer a future. You go, have your organizations, have the people that represent you learn everything there is to know about industrial hemp. It's a part of American history. All right, it's always been here. It will save the family farm. Right? Do that. If you would just do that, right? And the next election in 2016. Vote hemp. Make it vote hemp. Learn vote hemp. All right? And make them all support this because it will create an economy and an economic base for the people.
We're down to less than a minute left to go. Marlon?
Man, you know, I swear we're here in 2015, right? And how can a person be on a show without it's selfie time? Alrighty, there we go. Now that's going to be posted on social media somewhere, along with SOS for the cannabis clubs. This is going to be a benefit concert to be able to help the cannabis clubs in the future with legislation and maybe some law, and then we'll go from there.
Nikki?
Come to the other spot. Check us out, 72nd and Herald, doing something every single day of the week, 7 days a week.
72nd, Southeast Herald. Tune in next week. John's going to play a few chords on the way out. We will have some tape shows until January 8th, and we'll be back live and help us restore hemp. Good night.
Ganja. I like medical